Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Undiscovered Decade, a podcast where we look back at the 1990s and try to discover some of the hidden gems that we left behind, that we never got to see, that we'd forgotten about. This month, we're taking a look at the career of Bruce Willis a little bit by looking at one of his really undersung comedies. Right about this point in 92, he was taking on a lot of dramas. We mentioned him back in November when we covered Billy Bathgate, but he was pretty much trying to do action films and dramas. Like the third Die Hard would come up in a few years. That was what he was known for now. He'd left his moonlighting days behind, but with this, the film for July 92, Death Becomes Her, he found or rediscovered a new passion for comedy, I think, that he might have lost when he tried to do Hudson Hawk, and that sort of bombed. I think Bruce has a really good penchant for comedy. I think he's playing off of his two co-stars, Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn, really well. I wish he'd done more comedy. And he just sort of fell into the John McClane stereotype.
He probably got typecasted.
And he got the money for it. So I'm sure he liked doing it and got the money for it. But
well, there was a time in the 2000s, maybe late 90s, where he swore off action movies, but he could only get money by doing action movies.
sure.
And like you said, he started off in Moonlighting, so that's like that was a faux sitcom, and he was basically mugging for the camera, making quippy remarks. So this is kind of like his screwball farce, this movie.
Have you seen Moonlighting? Any of you?
I've seen a couple episodes.
Okay.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've never watched it.
He's got sharp comic timing with Sybil Shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of my favorite Bruce Willis performances. This is him actually being an actor instead of being very stoic and monosyllabic like he is in some of the action movies, where his whole performance is 1,000-yard stare.
Mm-hmm.
This is him actually inhabiting a character.
Yeah, he definitely he's definitely not his normal tropey self given his record at this point.
Yeah,
definitely. This film achieved cult classic status, not only because of just the ridiculous over the top nature of it, but like Bruce Willis is very much a Brad type from Rocky Horror.
yeah.
And like if Seymour was into like plastic surgery instead of plants, like that's kind of like that Meek shall inherit vibe for the most part, but it's still
A little ineffable.
Yeah, who would have pull off a nerd?
Yeah, I think
you
that was
just
like
think
his
Bruce
entire
Willis-
thing, they Clark Kented him
Yeah,
because like he's a built dude in real life. So like dressing him down, slightly baggier clothes, sagging a little bit to make him look like a little bit older, and just kind
ill-fitting suit.
of schlummy.
Well, just his character too is just so cowardly and weaselly. It's just like, this is not the action hero.
if you had Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep both coming after you, I think you'd be a little intimidated too all the time.
Well, especially if I thought they were undead.
That too, right?
Well, it's interesting.
So-
This movie's like a precursor because Zemeckis would go on to produce Tales from the Crypt, and they would produce
Really?
movies.
Wow.
This feels like a test run for Tales from the Crypt.
Huh.
You watch it, it feels like an extended episode.
Huh.
At least to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel about
No, I can see
I mean,
that.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it had that sort of feel to it.
It works, I guess, for Zemeckis, especially because we've been talking about Bruce Willis this past few minutes. Goldie Hawn, when like she gets a little unhinged and a little bit extra dead, she really pulls off that like zombie dead girl look.
The eyes help.
Yeah,
it. The contacts are good.
probably because like it was a different
She
different hue of blue, and
Yeah.
she's like
Well,
they tailed her up because she got a shotgun shell to the stomach.
Yeah.
So lost a lot of blood. So like she looked really undead, and the way that she would just move about just kind of a little bit unsettling.
Yeah, the two of
Since you
them.
brought that up, what's the
I feel like-
overall plot?
I was gonna say, I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, what's the overall plot of the movie?
The
I-
how do you explain this?
So Meryl Streep is an actress in the 70s who is already like, she's not necessarily feeling her age, but she wants to be young forever. And so
Yeah.
and Goldie Hawn was her, I guess, former friend who
Matt was the best friend.
Yeah, childhood friend.
They
Oh.
basically Meryl Streep was with Bruce Willis, and then he jilted her for Goldie Hawn, and then years later, it switched again. So he's kind of like the patsy throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, he seems
The
very
reverse.
yeah, he seems to be a very easily influenced by women.
I think he's fine with whatever happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
just along for the ride, man.
Yeah.
He's very
He's
hench.
also a rich plastic surgeon, so
So it
Definitely.
is an interesting point that we can get into later. There are a bunch of deleted scenes where they cover more of his occupation, but he had been a successful surgeon. And once he starts dating Meryl, she brings him to Los Angeles, and she turns him into a plastic surgeon because she thinks that's where he's going to be. Or no, he was a plastic surgeon.
Yeah, he was.
And so I did this switchery too. He somehow leads him to a mortuary.
I think what
Where he
happened.
can
What
work
happens?
on
They
dead
establish that like his hands aren't steady anymore, so he can't quite do surgery
Yeah.
the way he used to.
This is
But
what's
like I
missing.
think it's inferred that like his hands became less steady because Meryl Streep, like her character, like probably whittled him down, his personality and soul,
Yeah.
to where like he started losing his edge, to where he couldn't be a plastic surgeon anymore.
Yeah, where he becomes part of a screwball comedy.
He's basically both these women are domineering over him, so he's just a ball of nerves.
Yeah. So there's some time in between Goldie Hawn coming back to reclaim her lost man, and
I think it's just revenge. I think it's just
It's just-
entirely revenge, and like
It's revenge on Meryl.
yeah, and like she doesn't really care about Bruce Willis's character, because like
She
Well,
tries to. She has
I think
the
she
plot with him.
yeah, but
to-
I think she's just wooing him, and he's a pawn at this point. She
Yeah,
doesn't
maybe.
probably
she just wants to win.
there might be
Yeah.
some love in there, but I think it's mostly vindictive. And
No, it's
just
all
for
possessiveness
wanting
on their
to-
part.
Yeah, I guess when he messes up, she's like, "Okay, why did I fall for
Yeah.
you?"
Yeah, she gets really snippy with him when he starts like not doing well,
Yeah.
even though technically
So
he did the job. Just not right.
She comes to Los Angeles and she hatches this plot where she's going to kill Meryl Streep as revenge, but she has this idea about poisoning Meryl, and she needs Bruce to set it up, and they'll bury the body and no one will know what happened. They'll just call her drunk and she was in a car accident, and they'll frame it as that. And we don't know, or at least they don't know, that Meryl has, in her pursuit for the Fountain of Youth, discovered this secret underground situation where Isabella Rossellini is part of, and provides a potion that will keep her young forever.
And
It'll heal-
Some
it'll
vampire
heal-
nightclub
Yeah.
and got a glowing thing.
Yeah. Fabio is a bodyguard there.
Was he Tom, Dick, or Harry? Which I
I
also
think
thought was
He's
hilarious.
the one that opens the door, so I would assume Tom.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. Those were the names of her bodyguards.
Yeah.
Um,
By the way, not her body.
Isabella?
Yeah. Catherine Bell from Jag
Oh,
is body double.
interesting. That makes sense. Yeah, Catherine Bell did that a lot back then.
Yeah, she did actually.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Was she the body devil in Blue Velvet?
Yeah, that would be interesting. She only doubles Isabella Rossellini.
Anyway, this Fountain of Youth pours over Meryl, and you can tell that she's younger. In some of the more interesting special effects of the movie, I don't know. We'll talk about this in a minute. I was going to ask if you thought they aged well.
I was
But
gonna say the
more-
de-aging in
more
this
to
is
talk
good.
about. Yeah,
The de-aging that I mean, now we're all used to de-aging because of Marvel.
yeah.
Because you see Michael Douglas in an earlier scene from Ant-Man. And
Yeah,
it's
could just
a young
see
Michael
that
Douglas.
today.
Mhm.
But it was all special effects in these recent movies. Back then, they did a lot with lighting and makeup was a big
Mhm.
part of it. So they
Yeah.
put more contours on their face. They put a little more concealer on their face. They make them look a little rosier. I'm sure they made them look frumpier in the earlier scenes too with makeup.
And there, I think, is more of a touching up rather than an entire youthifying.
Wardrobe too.
And Goldie Hawn's fat suit.
Plus, the thing is, we are talking about an Oscar-winning
Yeah.
visual effects crew because they were actually using CGI that they would utilize in their next film. Some of them would move on to do Jurassic Park.
Right.
So it's not exactly the same, but they utilized the machine that
There were
they
a lot of
perfected.
They developed the
they between the visual effects and part of the reason why some of the effects held up for so long is because they were practical.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
They're all
got an Oscar for those effects too. I've held that Oscar before. Fun fact. Because one of my friends in college went to go visit. His dad was one of the creators of the makeup on this show. So, I went out to visit the shop and everything. I'm sitting in the office and I see this Oscar on the shelf. I'm like, what the hell is that for? And they're like, oh, that was for the Death Becomes Her. You want to hold it? I'm like, sure. So I held the Oscar for special effects for Death Becomes Her. And like the practical effects and the practical effects and the digital effects go hand in hand with this, especially with, there's that scene where before they realize that Helen, who's Goldie Hawn's character, has also taken the potion. Meryl convinces Ernest, yes. Ernest to kill her. So he takes a shotgun to her into a pool. And then she pops up and she's got this big old hole in the middle of her. It's got water flowing out as she's getting out of the pool.
Yeah, but it's like a torso shot, so you can tell it's probably a puppet.
Yeah.
But it looks good.
But it's matted, so you can actually, and it still holds up.
There's a couple of shots too where it's not even like that first shot you see through her stomach is the money shot. But there's other scenes where she's just walking around where she sits down with the shovel going through her.
Yeah.
They didn't need to do so well, and it still holds up throughout.
You know what? I think Zemeckis probably has a logistical geographical mind because he had to do this with Roger Rabbit, is coordinating special effects with live action.
Mm-hmm.
So he probably has that mindset that he can map stuff out like that. I'm sure the storyboarding sessions for this were amazing.
Some of these people worked on Roger Rabbit as well, so I'm sure they had a repartee. I do want to mention before we talk more about the plot, the special effects, because of the logistics, they had to maneuver very slowly, almost as if Meryl and Goldie were stop motion puppets themselves. So Meryl was quoted, and I'm pulling this from the Wikipedia article, but I know it's from some interview she did around the time. She hated having to do that way. And this is the quote from her. She vowed to never do special effects again. My first, my last, my only, I think it's tedious. Whatever concentration you can apply to that kind of comedy is just shredded. You stand there like a piece of machinery. They should get machinery to do it. I loved how it turned out, but it's not fun to act to a lampstand. Pretend this is Goldie right here. No, I'm sorry, Bob. She went off the mark by 5 centimeters, and now her head won't match her neck. It was like being at the dentist. I just think that's funny because this is 92, and you hear all the time about Ewan McGregor, I was looking at a tennis ball and it was Jar Jar.
Now it's the norm.
Yeah.
And there's that infamous story about Ian McKellen breaking down on set of a green screen. He's like, this is not why I got into this.
Right. And they probably were on the set was constructed where that fireplace was and the stairs they fall down and
Beautiful scenery.
at least it's not an entire green screen room.
I think it probably would have been easier if it was a green screen room, because like you'd have to line up the shots exactly if you have a set environment.
Yeah.
Because like you just said in the quote, like if you're off by a little bit, it's just game over. At least with the green screen, like you have the flexibility of like you can fix it in post.
Right.
It's funny. Meryl was like, I'm never doing special effects again, and Bruce was like, let's do more of that.
Yeah. This could be
Go
here.
Yeah. But it was
Fifth Element. Let's do that.
I did also read this week. I just happened upon this on Twitter. Someone was posting something from Reddit where the Marvel VFX team was freaking out about their work because they were just commenting to each other about the turnaround that executives always want to see the animatics or what a finished scene will look like. And the time they need is twice as long as they're given.
Oh.
And then the executives see this half-done product and they're like, why does it look shitty? It's like, well, you gave us half the time. We weren't even started yet. And they're like, this is bad. Why aren't you doing it faster? And that's their response. So if you're curious why Marvel looks shittier than the old days, it's not just practical effects. It's they give them no time to perfect something they didn't yet really perfect.
it's all crunch.
Yeah, so we should probably be less hard on these teams because they're given less money and less time to do something that they want to do well, and they're just exhausted. So, we take it with a grain of salt, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think, another reason why not only the effects but this movie itself holds up is you don't see a lot of good horror comedy anymore, and this was the way that the effects were done and the way like the violence in it is not gory. It's like body horror without any gore, if that makes any sense. Like her head gets twisted around, she gets shot in the stomach, she gets shot in the stomach, but it's just like it's a big
viscera on blood.
Yeah, it's a big burnt out hole. You don't see splatter zone, you don't see like someone getting their face cut open. It's just
there's technically blood in the pool, but
right, but it's something that like
comedy part of the horror comedy.
Yeah.
It's outlandish the way that the violence
grotesque.
Yeah,
because it could have gone a lot bloodier with it. But
and like Meryl Streep's character is like hanging on the edge of the stairway. Like there is a comically long pause before she actually goes like, "Help me, you idiot!" And then Bruce Willis is like, "Folks, fall down the stairs and die."
I like that. That was
a long time hovering. It was like she should have fallen by now. Like
I'd say they pulled it off too.
Yeah.
She's upset about the timing. I think they still managed to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Even in those scenes that must have been the most difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Kudos to her at least. So yeah, like we mentioned, he boops her and she falls down the stairs and dies. And apparently as part of this potion, she can't really die. So the youth factor is also a eternal factor.
Yeah, it's like the body can die, but she will still exist.
Yeah,
essentially. They
said it's something like 7 years or 70 years or something that it might wear off.
No, I think it's within X amount of years you should probably off yourself or disappear, so that way you don't draw attention. Yeah, you have to live the rest of your existence almost in solitude. Like apparently there's a bunch of these celebrities that have taken the potion over the years, and they meet up at the
mansion that Isabella Rossellini.
Yeah, it's basically almost like a cult, but it's a social club too.
Yeah,
a very elite social club. So like you can't interact with people. Just you gotta be really limited.
Yeah.
But like there's
a show with Andy Warhol and Marilyn Monroe.
Elvis Presley is like, some of you all just expose yourself from time to time and like, hey, it's a little funny, but be careful.
So yeah, they freak out, and we're supposed to be like, oh, this is a surprise. I don't know if it's in the trailer. I didn't watch that.
I think it's
I'm sure it's the selling point of this film. It's called Death Becomes Her. And so she's clearly alive. Bruce and Meryl freak out. They go to the doctor because what else would you do? Because they're in shock and they're like, maybe we can twist your head back around
and fix it.
Yeah.
And the doctor is examining her body and he's like, okay, broken neck and you're what? How? No, what? Broken wrist and you don't feel shit. What's going on there? Checks her pulse, is like, you're medically dead. You are medically dead.
And then has a heart attack himself and dies. Liked that bit. Good cameo, by the way. You know who that was, right, Corey?
The doctor?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Sidney Pollack?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's actually a really good actor, actually.
I recognized the voice and didn't think about it. It is.
I don't know. His performance is a little fishy.
Okay.
See what I did there?
Because of
Pollock.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a reference to one of his films.
No.
But I just thought of the fact that he did Out of Africa with Meryl, so they're probably friends. And
hot take, this is better.
Yeah. I've never seen it, but I can already tell it's a little schmaltzy. So yeah, they figure out, well, she's dead. Let's figure out what to do. And I think the best part, Jimmy was listening to this part where Bruce is like, I guess I'm Frankenstein now, because he gets to tinker around with some sort of corpse and he becomes a plastic surgeon again, trying to figure out how to make her look alive.
Yeah, well, because like over the years he's established earlier in the movie that like he's gotten really good at being like a funeral home guy, to the point where like one of his former clients is like, how do you make the bodies look so lively? And he was like, yeah, just go to Home Depot and just industrial spray paint. And they're just horrified. Look, hey, it works. So like he's the guy to go to if you want to keep a dead body looking young.
That was a cameo too, wasn't it? Was that somebody?
I don't know.
I thought I saw in the cast that it was Mary Ellen Trainor. Who's
okay. From Lethal Weapon?
Yeah, she's the mom in the Goonies. So I didn't recognize her. I haven't seen this in a while.
Yeah, they really dolled her up. She looked like a ritzy rich person. Was like, oh yeah, because like the way that she was dressed, she just
good scene, good stuff.
Almost makes me think that Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn done more stuff together because they got really good chemistry.
Yeah, they had good repertoire.
It could have been like the Bette Midler, Lily Tomlin over time.
Yeah,
maybe they're just too big to be in one movie together.
Goldie,
at the same time.
Goldie in the 90s started to fade, and then she pretty much retired after the Banger Sisters.
She should have taken an eternal youth.
Yeah, because have you seen her lately?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus!
We
all know Robert Zemeckis directed this. I didn't.
Well, I was gonna say
which is funny because I only saw this movie very recently, and I didn't realize it was Zemeckis who directed it. But seeing that, now it all makes sense. I also didn't realize that it was Bruce Willis all these years. I'm like, because this film just existed in my periphery, and I just kind of like glanced at the poster once or twice, and for some reason I thought that Bruce Willis's character was played by Steve Martin. Because it seems like something that he would be in too, just like go off the wall.
And he was the house sitter with Goldie Hawn, so
right,
was with her recently.
He did Counters with her too.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But the other thing that I was going to say was apparently during filming, Zemeckis would occasionally say, "Hold on to your butts." And that's where that phrase came from, because whoever collaborated with on it for Jurassic Park wrote that into the script.
Well, David Cap.
I know that.
Screenwriter David Cap and frequent Zemeckis collaborator wrote this as a catchphrase for Samuel L. Jackson at Jurassic Park.
That's funny. And it's literally because Meryl's behind herself and holding her butt.
Yeah. She had to walk backwards with a blue screen hood.
Yeah.
So
this film influenced other things.
The weird thing is, I think the reason you didn't think this was Zemeckis is because it's kind of it's not kid friendly. Yeah, it's not kid friendly, and it's slight.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah, it's a black comedy, but
it's not substantial. It's not something like this isn't like an impactful movie in his career. Like after this, After this, he became like a critical darling because he did stuff like Forrest Gump, then Castaway.
Castaway. Yeah.
But this is like right on the cusp of him doing like larks, because Back to the Future and all that stuff, used cars, they're all kind of romps. And then after this, tipped him over into like stuff like Contact, a little heavier adult theme stuff.
Yeah, I think they were. You can see the through line from Back to the Future 3, this and Forrest Gump, because it's still a little lighthearted, but he's taking on real world events. So then I think he latches onto that, and see it with the next few things he does, because Contact is like, this is the universe. I think Contact's really the one that pushes him towards that direction.
Right.
And he latches into the CGI element of it, because then stuff like Beowulf and
he did mocap for
Polar Express.
Yeah. So
He's always been a VisFX guy.
yeah. It's almost like watching Coming to America and noticing the first time Eddie does the fat suits,
multiple characters,
makeup. And he loved doing it, clearly, because then Nutty Professor is just a movie based on that. And everything else, he almost has a second character from then on. You think it's Nutty Professor, but it's really Coming to America. So you think Zemeckis really latches onto the CGI later in his career? It's Death Becomes Her, probably.
Well, it's like James Cameron really got involved with like CGI, and most of his movies are technology driven now.
Yeah.
Ever since Terminator 2.
And
actually before that, yes. But
I mean, he still utilizes like heavy practical effects, because like when they did Titanic, like they had to like reset the set every time they sank the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them talking about it in an Entertainment Weekly article in the summer, because it had meant to come out that early, but would be pushed to November. And they were like, this boat is sinking. It's not going well on set. He's going to lose his career over this. And that saved him. So
Yeah.
the CGI and everything. I was going to say, when he brought up Steve Martin, I didn't know this. Looking into the trivia, the other people that almost played that part included Kevin Kline and Nick Nolte. I can actually see Nick Nolte playing it.
Nick Nolte.
Would have been interesting.
You saw your food.
He's a little bit rough.
Apparently, Jeff Bridges auditioned for it too.
I think, Jeff Bridges would have been fun. I think he makes the most sense. And Kevin Kline makes the most sense in the writing standpoint of this. He
Well, he was originally in it, and then he dropped out, I thought.
He had done Sophie's Choice with Meryl, so it would have been a nice comedic side.
That wasn't funny.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It would have been a nice didactic.
No, but this was after Fish Called Wanda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
She in that at all?
No, but I'm saying he got an Oscar for a comedic role. So
Sure. Okay.
it's natural that they would want him for this.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I could see him doing it. I don't know about Jeff Bridges though. Is he good at light comedy?
Big Lebowski.
I mean, the Big Lebowski.
I don't know if that's light comedy.
Iron Man.
Well, that was Megaton comedy, you know.
Yeah.
I could see any of them doing it. I mean, Nick Nolte's doing Bridges in Madison County around this point, right?
No, it wasn't him.
That's not him. Oh, that's Clint. What did he
You
do?
think of Prince of Tides, maybe?
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
So it's not that's more of a drama, but he's doing lighthearted things.
He did I Love Trouble with Julia Roberts around this time, so
I think any of them could have pulled it off. I just
honestly
think it's fun we got Bruce.
I was gonna say I'm so glad they picked Bruce. I wonder how they persuade him to do the role too, because this must have been just his chance to harken back to his comedy days. So he jumped out.
Yeah, maybe it's just the money. Maybe he didn't have anything lined up, and it's like, hey, this fits.
Also, you see those stars in that director, and you're like, why would I pass this up?
Yeah, giving a chance to do something with Meryl and Goldie.
Yeah.
That's probably a lot of it. So we didn't really finish up the plot, but it pretty much gets into a comedy of errors, and body horror plays into it. We mentioned the shotgun blast.
Neither of them.
Obviously, Goldie has taken the potion as well. And then they have a big cat fight.
Cat fight to end all cat fights, and neither of them can die, so it just keeps going.
Right. So it's
And
very,
going.
very Looney Tunes, very funny
Yeah.
in that regard.
I was half expecting Meryl to show up with a plunger of TNT, and
I like how the fight's resolved with a very very womanly trope, where it was like, well, I got back at you this
tread lightly.
for that reason.
You
It
gonna
was
say
like,
something
oh,
problematic
all goes
right now?
back to, like some childhood bullshit, and like, oh, I'm sorry, I did, and then they get back, like they just make up like that. They're
Oh, we're
like,
best
oh,
friends, I
we're
guess.
best friends again. We forgive each other. We realize
Remember you parked
we
the car.
realized the force of our anger at each other and acknowledged it.
Fun.
But like shit got like way too out of hand over their whole entire lives, and it culminated at this point, and like essentially they're screwed for eternity because technically they're both dead.
Is
But
this
at least they're friends again. They couldn't have made up before all this had happened.
so? Time will just goes to show that if you have enough time with someone, you can eventually make up. But my thought, what's the timeline here? Because there are still these title cards every so often that are like 7 years later, another 7 years later, 37 years later. So are we to understand that this is over 50 years after?
The first
Like,
part, yeah. It's like
so
34 or something.
Yeah,
when the
they-
finale
Oh no, I'm
happened.
sorry, 37. It was after because you see
It's like 2029.
Bruce Willis. Yeah.
The
So
funeral.
technically, this ends up being a future.
Yeah, but like when the movie takes
It's
You went back to the
Yeah.
future with this one.
when
Ah,
the main plot takes place, I think it's supposed to be
92.
21 years, I think. No, 14?
because it starts in 79.
7 years later, when
It's-
she gets into
yeah,
the psych ward,
Because it starts off
and
at
7 years after that is when she seeks her revenge. So that's
okay, 14
And
years.
they,
So
they mention it's like 76 or something.
yeah,
So
76,
by
79.
by doing that, it lines up with about 91, 92, when we're in present day, when most of the action takes place. And so
Yeah.
then the finale cap is 37 years later, which would be 2029.
Yeah, and it's Bruce Willis's funeral because he just died of natural causes.
And you know what's neat
And they're-
about like having
78 is when it starts.
real neat about having the funeral like in a church in 2029?
Yeah. Apparently they still
You're
exist.
not going to see much technology when you're at church because you're at church. So
Nobody's on their phones.
nobody's
at the
like,
funeral.
Brilliant.
they're not going to know to depict anything. So like, this is a safe bet.
Yeah.
At least he didn't try to cram a payphone in there.
It would have been funny if he did some dumb thing where like the picture of Bruce on the ski slopes was a hologram or something.
Oh yeah.
Or you see Marty
or
McFly
he's
walk
holding
past in the
on board.
background.
Right. Yeah.
You see Marty McFly walk past in the background.
The
Right.
Twin Pines Funeral Home.
Right? Oh
Yeah,
god.
right?
This is Zemeckis verse.
So before we get to the funeral scene that we've mentioned, the one last thing that has to happen, they realize, the two girls, that they're going to be in trouble if they don't have someone to spray paint them all the time to make them look alive. So they're like, we have to give him the potion. We have to give Bruce the potion. We can't tell everyone in the world that we're dead or stuck dead. So if he's in on this, let's bring him to Lyle's mansion and give him the potion, force it on him. And so then it becomes like a madcap escape situation where he doesn't want to be taken in by Isabella Rossellini. And
Because he actually, like, in
You know,
a
it's
moment
oddly
of clarity,
touching
he
and
realizes the agony of living forever. He's like, all the people I
Yeah.
know will be dead.
it's good. It's good.
He's the straight man in the entire movie. He's like, this is a
No.
stupid idea. Why would I do this?
Yeah. I like that they touch on that, because usually in these things, it's like Interview with a Vampire. They want to be living forever. They want to
Yeah.
see what happens. They want to be with their friends forever. But then I believe, if I'm correct, in Interview with a Vampire, Antonio Banderas is upset because everyone died around him.
Yeah.
Some character in that does.
Yeah, they're coming to terms with the
Immortality.
immortality
Yeah.
and like not like, oh, who was like, it's they're only Lestat and
The other one.
the other one, they're only a few hundred years old, whereas like Antonio Banderas' character is like,
He's from like 50, 70 years earlier.
oh no, I think he's from the Roman era
Oh,
or the
right.
Middle Ages.
Okay, yeah.
He's
It's been a
like he's
while.
way older. Like oh my god, I can't remember Lestat and The other guy.
Brad Pitt's character.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt.
They were made into
I put us on
vampires.
the spot.
Yeah, they were made into the vampires like 17 something, 18 something. So they're,
Louis.
they're barely a couple hundred years.
Yeah,
Louis. It's
They're
Louis.
barely a couple hundred years old. So like they're reaching the point in their very vampiric lifetimes where they're coming to terms with immortality and the isolation and
Yeah, you always think of
being
it
alone.
after the fact.
Which
And
is-
so I like
yeah,
that Bruce.
Which
thinks
is
of it-
why we get
Yeah.
Kirsten Dunst Kirsten Dunst's
We just got
character.
married yesterday.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst's character being turned into a vampire as a child because like one of them took pity on her
Mhm.
because they found her alone with her dead mother who died from the bubonic plague.
Yeah.
So
A little creepy, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The things.
but then here with Bruce Willis in this movie, he's just like we're right off the bat, he's just sitting there like, wait, I don't want this.
Yeah, you never get
And
in
And it's
like, he's depicted as an oaf throughout
From
the movie. So like this is nice to know that like the oaf has some wisdom.
he's smarter
But
than those geniuses.
the deeper level to that is the fact that he was working as a plastic surgeon and has been, as Lazel points out, he's been giving people he's been euthanating them his entire life, and then he's just like, why would anyone want this forever? Not to mention all of the side effects that he doesn't necessarily know about, like they're literally falling apart at the seams,
Yeah.
like when they
I
fall
don't know
down.
if you're Elvis and you don't kill yourself, you're doing fine. But if you're stuck in the way that Madeline and Helen are, you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
So
I think we going into the spoilers here.
I think so.
Okay.
We always
You're
do.
watching this podcast, spoilers, sorry.
Yeah.
You always
That's like
wonder.
Sometimes you get weird about spoilers.
33 episodes.
Yeah, this is one of the perks of like talking about movies from the 90s because like sure we
So-
might have seen it and forgotten it or like
It's just new to us, that's all.
like
Yeah.
but like
Well,
there's
anyway,
been enough time to like we're gonna spoil shit no matter
I
what.
think
Like,
you're-
yeah, it's been 50 year span in the movie. But Ernest's self-sacrifice is both tragic and oddly touching.
Yeah, I like it.
Actually, yeah. I was like, I never thought I would tap into these emotions in this part of the movie. It's very bittersweet. And you're right, he's the only one, he's the wisest one of all three of them.
Mhm.
You know, initially he seems like the most clueless.
Yep.
very impressionable. Like
Impressionable, man.
I like that whole set too. The fact that
The house is awesome.
the party scene is good. The underground pool is neat, and it sets it up for him to survive a fall, which is nice. And he falls right through the hand of God.
Mhm.
So that's
oh
kinda,
yeah.
that's kind of funny.
Just a little thing about Bruce Willis's character. It's I think shit, I lost it. Never mind.
I will tell you while you're trying to think of what you were going to say. When he falls through the pool, Jimmy pointed this out. I didn't even realize a connection to another film we like. Jim Morrison is the character that's like, "Are you going to be there for a while?"
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
supposed to be.
Okay, that's
I picked up on that real quick. I'm like, hey, Jim Morrison, we get him again.
Yeah. He's following us around.
This movie is just the culmination of like it's gonna branch out now for every other
Mhm.
celebrity involved movie.
Mhm.
This and Men in Black sometime 5 years from now.
Yeah. Did you remember what you?
That's not a hidden gem.
I don't.
Oh,
I
we'll
tried
talk
to
about it.
Backtrack in my head, and I just couldn't quite figure out what it was exactly.
If you think of it later.
Like, I think it was something along the lines of like, because like by the time he died in this movie of old age, like he's contributed to humanity, like significantly. For an individual person, like not so much where he changed global politics, but like he contributed. I think the moral of the story is like ultimately you don't need no woman to be your own man in life. He figured that out a little late.
That's the moral.
Yeah.
I would have gone with you can still do a lot even if you're mortal. Then you could have immortality and still
No,
be basically worthless.
he's a strong, independent white man. Oh wait, hold up.
I think-
Oh, but they
I
do
think-
make a
Jimmy.
joke that he's a Republican. So
He's doing this.
As it happens, this is a very popular cult classic with the LGBTQ plus community.
Mhm.
That right? Why?
I don't know. Meryl Streep's a
Are
fucking
they
icon. I don't know.
I
No,
guess
I know
they're
why.
considered like a couple at the end, right?
It got picked up by a number of drag queens because of the dresses that Madeline
Yeah.
Ashton had to wear, and
Um,
I'm sure they did some plays on the head behind.
They do have very garish eyeliner and stuff like
Yeah, so it's a little campy too. So I
that.
think
Yeah.
it just became a theme. It ended up on RuPaul's Drag Race. There was a whole season where
Oh.
they did a couple of costumes based on the theme of Death Becomes Her. So
Oh wow.
it
That's
just
cool.
got picked up, and now it's just a thing. So it's been
Yeah.
rediscovered already within that community.
Mhm.
So I think it makes sense. I think it lends itself to be a good drag. So
Mm.
so I take it we all like this quite a
Yeah,
bit.
I would say it's gonna sound like a backhanded compliment, but it's macabre throwaway fun. Like this is something that a director's like, I just want to have fun on set. I don't need a message movie. This is
Especially coming off of two big sequels.
right, yeah. Like I just want to do something for fun. This is like a
movie
pet
definitely
project. I
is a
just want
fun
to do.
movie.
Mhm.
But as like a stopgap between that big trilogy that he had just finished and going on to more serious stuff, I think this is a great diversion.
Yeah, and like we said, something people have sort of forgotten about. So
I
if
probably
you
I'd
like
probably
any
give
of
it
these people,
B+.
Zemeckis, Streep, Willis, or Hawn, this is a perfect vehicle to discover that you might not have realized existed.
Yeah, I give it a B+, and like I said, it's one of my favorite Bruce Willis performances of all time.
Solid A.
Yeah, I'd give it an A as well.
Hmm.
Holds up as much as I was hoping.
So I was gonna give it a lower grade, but after actually like I rewatched part of it this morning, and I'm just probably B+.
Join us.
What?
One of us.
Yes, exactly.
One of us.
Because I think I don't know. Initially, I thought it was like a little too campy and over the top, and then I'm like, no, it's just the right amount.
It's the right camp.
Perfect balance, as all things should.
It's fun.
And we don't get enough screwball comedies these days. So I
Not
think-
with actors of this caliber.
no. Like,
No.
it's nice to see Robert Downey Jr. actually do something that isn't so heavy-handed. And not to say that Marvel's heavy-handed, but it's become something too big.
We're
Oh,
talking
I thought
about
you were referring to Doolittle.
Yeah, he did Doolittle.
Yeah. I guess that was supposed to be a screwball comedy.
Yeah, but it helps if there's
And
other
the
actors.
Original podcast.
Yeah.